All right, everyone, we are here for the final race of the season at COTA. And we've got a special broadcast today, along with Jay. We've also got Nate in the booth today, back from his hiatus, dropping in for the last race of the season.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to be here. Glad to join you guys.
Well, excited to have you. I mean, it only feels right. You were always the one doing the broadcasts for seasons 1 through 4, so I'm glad we could at least include you on one of these for season 5.
Yeah, I hate that I missed so much of season 5. I was keeping up with it early in the season, and I missed some parts in the middle. But I'm glad to kind of get caught up with everything that's been going on. So
But yeah, we're definitely excited to have you. And I can say after almost wrapping up one complete season, it is a lot more work than I already knew it was for you. But after experiencing it, even more respect for what you did those other 4 seasons, especially soloing it. I feel like I've got easy mode because I've got Jay here with me holding it down.
yeah, you guys have added some editing stuff in that I didn't do because maybe I was too lazy. But I was trying when I did it. I tried to simplify the process as much as possible because I was always struggling for time, always struggling for what day I could record and do the broadcast. But you guys have done a great job, and it is better with two people because you get two perspectives on everything. So that's better.
Yeah, helps
I-
fill the time when there's a little bit of a lull in the action. So,
I'm
well,
I'm I'm just a little in shock because I've never been referred to as easy. So easy and my name in the same
we'll
sentence.
get your wife on for interview. See what she thinks of you.
Yeah, don't do that. My career will go.
Well, the cars are off for the warm up lap. While they're heading off here, we'll take a look at the qualifying order. As you can see, we've got Mota, who was the top car qualifying. In addition to Mota, we've got Alvarez in qualified second, and we have Macedo in third. All three of those guys were looking quick here all week, so no surprise to see them at the top.
Yeah, I mean those guys are always in the front. You know, they Alex has been with us since season 2, I believe, and he's always been top 5, top 3 no matter who the competition was. He's always been that way. And then Eric had a flash of brilliance in his first season with us, and then ever since then he's really kind of come along as being one of the fastest guys in the league. And David, same thing. David, kind of from day one, season 1, he was battling for a championship and lost by 1 point. So he's been one of the fastest guys here for a long time.
Yeah, he has. And just to give you an idea of the speed from these three, they all qualified with a 206. So Moto 206.1, Alvarez 206.3, David Macedo 206.6. So the next place fourth, which was Stefan Buckley, was a 208.3. So you can see the difference of times these guys are running here. So would expect them to kind of pull away with their own fight up front, but the remaining guys on the track today expect a good close battle from them.
Yeah, 208. That's about my pace. 206. I don't even that it should be illegal.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's really interesting looking at the cars on the grid. You know, you got Eric Alvarez, who I believe has driven that Honda ever since he joined us, and Mota has driven the Porsche ever since he's been with us. He's changed liveries a couple times, but he's always been in the Porsche. And then you got Evan Miller and Stefan Buckley. Those guys, same thing. Uh, they're running the same car they started off with us with long time ago. And then you got other guys that have and I almost forgot Scott Taylor. He's always driven that
Yeah,
Ferrari. He's
yeah,
always driven that Ferrari. Him and Joe Marsiglia, man. Those
that's
guys
right.
are the Ferrari faithful.
They are Ferrari bros for life.
That's right. But seeing David driving the McLaren is just so interesting because he always drove cars that were known to be like more stable. Maybe some would say a little more boring, like the Bentley or something like that, you know. But the McLaren is a little more on the edge of your seat the whole time and a little more intense to drive. So, but it just shows how good of a driver he is that he can change it up and still be really fast.
Yeah, absolutely. He truly is. He's a quick guy. All right, we're getting formed up for the start. They're heading to the starting line here, so we should get going any moment, and it'll be that uphill battle into turn one. And there's our green light. Let's see him, the race uphill here.
Yeah,
Everyone kind
T1 here is kind of a scary prospect. It's a blind left-hander,
of. Ooh.
and it's
And as you mentioned, the
contact
scary
there.
yeah, I see some contact like Friedland and
Buckley, I
Stefan
do believe.
Buck. Yeah, let's go back here and we'll try to see if we can get another view of this. Looks like Stefan Buckley kind of goes wide as well as Friedman there, and they both collide there right at the edge of the track.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to check that out in the stewarding. But yeah, that was
Good news is it looks like Buckley was able to rejoin. Now out in front, Mota had managed to hold on to his first place position with Alvarez tailing close and Macedo right behind him.
yeah, and that Honda is looking rather planted here. So
And is Alvarez gonna poke his nose inside? Sees if he can maybe unsettle Mota, but Mota says no.
You see
yeah,
Macedo trying to take advantage of that coming up alongside him there.
Yeah, that's always one of the risks you pull when you try to make a move. You risk kind of getting yourself out of position and then possibly losing it to the guy behind you. But
well, and it looks like that Honda's actually got some legs on it. He was actually starting to out drag Macedo in that McLaren.
yeah, that's going to be the interesting part. I don't know the name or if the straight even has a name here, but that back straight, I imagine, is going to be prime territory for that Honda to really stretch its legs out.
Yeah, since they reworked that thing, it is no joke. I mean, it used to kind of be a joke, but now it's a competitive car, and that is great.
And Taylor is all over the back of Friedland, and he is going to get positioned on the inside. Good position, going to be able to block the apex, and that's going to keep him in. That's going to put him in front of Friedland. So Taylor moved up into 7th.
Yeah, these guys, it's good to
Friedland's
see.
going to attack back right away.
Oh yeah, come in with the aggressive move. Can he make it stick though? No, he's not going to be able to hold on to it.
Just got on the sausages on the outside, and I can imagine hitting the gas was the least of his worries, just trying to keep that car straight.
Yeah, when you when you I can't think of the word, but when you dedicate yourself to make that pass and you overshoot it like that, then it's just kind of a, oh God, let me keep it straight. Like, let's just get back on the track and keep it straight. That's a tough feeling. We've all been there.
Well, and it's kind of interesting. We haven't seen anybody go airborne yet.
Yet. The day is still young.
Well, yeah, the curbs here at COTA they're notorious for sending cars into orbit. I don't know who put these curbs on the outsides of some of these corners, but I've said it before. They need to be tried for war crimes, because it is just someone needs to call the Hague, because it is not something you should do to anybody.
No, you're not kidding. I mean, I don't know if it's ACC physics or if the cars really would react that way, but you're not. When you say that they launched you into orbit, you are not kidding. I mean, you hit one of them, and then if that one doesn't send you, if you hit the second one right after that, you're just all you're seeing is sky out your out your
Well,
front windshield.
so I don't know if they affect GT cars the way they affect really stiff open wheelers, but if you want to see some scary stuff, just look up F1, F2, or F3 car hits sausage curb, and it almost looks like you're watching something out of iRacing, where the car just flies up in the air and disappears into the distance. It's pretty great.
Yeah, I was noticing something as we were watching Alvarez there for a minute. He's beating Mota in some of those long braking zones. He's gaining on him in every braking zone, and that's kind of unusual because historically that's how Mota has passed and dominated people, is by beating them through the slow parts of the track in that Porsche. He's so dominant coming out of the corners. Everybody knows the Porsche has great corner exit speed, but it also has great braking, and you see Alvarez just kind of bearing down on him in these long braking zones. Uh,
And
you don't
before I,
usually you don't usually see Mota get caught like that in the braking zone. That's all I'm saying. It's just kind of odd.
Yeah, no, you're right there. That he knows how to control that Porsche, and that Porsche is strong on the brakes. The right before switching to this, we saw Friedman pull off the track and retire from the race. I don't know if he ran into issues or if he was suffering something from that minor contact into turn one, but he's retired, so we'll have to monitor the rest of the group here, but no Friedland at this point. I think it was Buckley was the other one, so we'll have to keep an eye on Buckley and see how it impacts him.
Yeah, we've seen, we've always been really lucky in this league. We haven't had too many disconnects or crash to desktop situations. There's been a few, and a couple of them in very key moments. I think, Mike, you were one of the ones who suffered the worst.
I've had so many at this point from
The
racing
worst
in VR.
crash. Yeah, I think you suffered the worst crash we've ever had, though. I think it was you were leading a race at like the halfway point.
I think I've had leading. I've had been in second or third and had it happen. It's happened.
Yeah,
I'm at least good for one crash a season from VR, but
yeah. Unfortunately, that's just kind of a side effect of the VR experience. But
ever since switching to the Open VR, Steam VR, it was much better when it was the Oculus. But
yeah, I use that actually quite often. So when it comes to Alvarez, I wonder.
You see, Mota was slow through there. Sorry, Jay. He got slow through there, and Alvarez almost ran into the back of him.
Yeah. So there's a couple things going on here. I think. So I do remember that Alex was saying early on that he was having a really hard time around here with stability. So I wonder if he's maybe had to make some compromises on the setup to sort of deal with that, or if perhaps he's having to baby it in certain areas. The Honda's always been right with the Porsche as being really good on the brakes. It was because it was the slowest car, but I mean now it still seems to be really good on the brakes, even though it's one of the faster ones. So I wonder if it's just down to the ABS setting. Maybe Alvarez is running much lower ABS, which allows him to get a better straight line.
Yeah, as you're saying all that, Jay, he's all over him through these slow corners. He's definitely showing better performance in the slow parts of the track, which, COTA, you think of a high-speed track. There's a lot of really high-speed areas, but you can lose it in the slow-speed areas. That's where most of your time is lost if you get those. There's that one set of turns that's a switchback. I think it's a hard left and then a hard right, and the car is kind of sweeping left and right, so it's easy to lose the rear end of the car through there.
It's a really technical track.
Yes, it is. It's a great track for the final race of the season. It's great for that.
And Taylor looks like he's going to get past Miller here.
Looks
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
he's made the
Miller about had a
pass.
heart attack. Yeah,
Yeah, let's go
it looks
back
like
and
Miller just got
see.
out of the way there.
Looked like Evan just got a little wide and couldn't get it back on the racing line.
I
Yeah,
think
that's exactly it.
personally, I think he got a little scared. I don't think he
Oh,
expected Scott to go up the inside on him through this corner, and he just kind of gave
gave
the room.
room. Yeah, he thought. Yeah, I think he is. And at this point, you got to expect Miller to be a little
Oh,
gun shy. How many incidents has he been involved in? So
oh my God.
not to
Uh,
his fault. When I don't want to make it sound like it's Miller out causing him. He's been the victim quite a bit. So
At least won a race. I
yeah.
mean, two or
uh,
three for good measure.
so he's had the Joe Marsiglia season this season.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
We're gonna have to
he
give him.
has.
We're gonna have to give him the
Yeah.
Marsiglia Award for just being the
Yeah.
most unlucky guy on track.
We we need a Marsiglia award in this league because Joe had a couple seasons where he had like a 6 race stretch where he got hit every race.
Yeah.
So, and I've raced against Joe. You guys have raced against him more than I have. He most of the time is really careful. Like
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't drive aggressively. So the fact that he was getting hit so often was just mind-boggling. Like, how is this poor guy? Oh, as
Woo!
you see somebody lock it up.
Yeah,
That
some
was
style
driving.
points there. Yeah, driving.
Wow. That
Let's
actually
see.
slowed the guys. It slowed the guys behind him down because they both thought they were going to hit him, and because they could have easily passed him, but they both thought they were going to hit him, and they slowed down and backed off of it.
Yeah, when you see a car start going sideways, you never know what's gonna happen. It's gonna snap back or what. So yeah,
Oh
Scott
yeah, that was
slams the brakes.
a good maneuver there by Taylor to just.
Yeah, no kidding.
Hmm.
And
I think there's probably about an inch there.
from talking to Taylor this week too. I mean, he's fifth place in the championship, and his goal going into this race is do everything he can to secure staying in fifth. So, I
Right.
expect we'll see Scott want to work his way through the pack as much as possible, but also want to avoid having anything that could end his race.
Yeah, and the good thing is everybody here is in the point, so it's just a matter of can you gain a few extra points.
Mm-hmm.
So
And Mota is managed to eke out a little bit in front of Alvarez. Not much, but he's showing about a second ahead, and David about 2 seconds then behind Alvarez. So
yeah, David's been kind of detached from these guys for probably about 6 or 7 laps now. I don't know. I haven't been here for every race, but I know in seasons past, David always got faster as the race went on. So I'm
mm-hmm.
assuming even in the McLaren, he's still that way. But be interesting to see. That set of curves that David just went through right there, that left, right, left, or maybe it's right, left, right, whatever it is that you kind of swing back and forth. It seems like the Porsche was giving Mota a little bit of a hard time through there when he went through there a couple laps ago.
Yeah, and you think typically the Porsche does pretty well with the change of direction stuff, but it's a little bit higher speed than your super slow chicanes. So maybe with that higher
You see
speed and that
Alvarez
weight in the
looking.
back. Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off there, Mike, but Alvarez making a move to the inside.
And held to the inside and made it stick. It is going to put Mota on the inside here, but Mota's wasn't quite up enough, didn't want to risk anything, and backed out.
So the section of the track you guys are talking about, that left, right, left. I'm completely not up with the corner names on this track, so
I don't think a lot have names either, from my understanding. I think they have like 1 or 2 turns with names here. Everything else is just a number.
So those switchbacks, each one of those is a decreasing radius. So
Mm-hmm.
it gets tighter and tighter and tighter as you go through them. And the Porsche is notorious for being very bad off throttle.
Yeah.
So that would be one area where I would be interested to see if Alvarez is gaining on him through there. That might be one of the reasons.
Yeah. Well, I know from the
And
history
again,
of what we've seen from Mota, we've seen him hardly ever crash during a race, but when he does, it's in spectacular fashion. Like he has had some. I remember at I think it was Monza, he hit the wall super hard coming onto the backstretch one time because he was coming. He just barely. Looked like almost contact there. But yeah, so not saying that's going to happen to him, but if he's struggling through there, that is something to watch for.
Oh, Nick driving just goes a little wide there.
yeah.
Parks it right on the
Yeah.
rake edge. Yeah.
Scott does another great job of avoiding collision there.
Yeah. Yeah, this part of the track is so hard. Because you come out onto this right-hander and you think, oh, okay, it's a long right-hand corner, I can get back on the gas. No, you can't. You kind of have to let it drift a little bit farther in before you even think about it.
Yeah, and in this section, you're fighting with traction a little bit through here. Getting on the gas. Ooh, and hits that inside curb, throws him on the outside. That's
and
good.
then he hits the outside curbs too.
I mean, then hits the outside. Yeah, throws him into the outside curbs. It's going to be a race that Honda just so much top end. You can see him just eking away from Taylor, even though he had the bad acceleration out of there.
Yeah, you can really tell that Scott knows that every point counts because he's being more protective of his own car than he is being aggressive.
Yeah, it really shows he wants to survive this, and I think he knows. I mean, Scott typically is pretty calculated too, where he waits for that right opportunity to get by somebody. He doesn't try to risk it. I know last race he was probably a little bit more aggressive than normal, where he had a couple incidents with Evan Miller, but that was the abnormal. It was actually good to see Taylor a little bit more aggressive, really trying to go for it. But typically he is very calculated driver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at this point we've got in the front things are kind of spaced out between Alvarez, Mota, and Macedo, but we've got a great battle with these four cars: Driveman, Taylor, Miller, and Stefan Buckley. So
Yeah, and they've really kind of given us some pretty good races throughout this season. So
yeah,
I mean,
they have.
really there's no surprise about that. I mean, Evan has been really one of the standouts so far, along with Scott. You know, two of the guys that are.
Oh, and Buckley looks like
Yeah, it looks
wow.
like Miller just got a little out of sorts coming out of that corner.
Yeah, let's see if we can get this.
I think that's the same spot that Miller gave it up to Taylor earlier, was coming through that same right here. Isn't this where he lost it before?
Oh yeah, you can see he lost a little bit of traction. The car wiggled, and Stefan Buckley makes the most of that. Shoots right past him, gets into that the inside, and pulls right past Evan. So good clean move by Stefan Buckley.
Absolutely.
That area is super dangerous too, because you're coming up over a hill, coming down onto that straight. So you give it all the gas in the world, and you lose traction coming up over the top of it. But no, sorry, like I was saying, Miller and Taylor have really been sort of the two guys I've been sort of the most surprised by this season. I mean, not in a bad way, but sort of how much more consistent and their constant improvement on pace has really led to really a lot more close races for both of them, and it's great to see.
Yeah, I think you could make the argument that every single guy that's on the track in this race, that most of these guys are all long timers. They've been with us for several seasons. I think every single one of them has gotten better since they joined us. Nick Driveman, I think he's improved quite a lot. I know
Yeah.
Evan has improved his consistency a ton compared to when he first started with us. He had a
Oh no! Oh
oh
no!
yeah,
Oh.
as we're saying good stuff about him, of course, but even Eric Alvarez, who's leading the race right now, Eric, he had the flair for he would find the wall. When he first joined us, he would qualify high, and then I think it was too much adrenaline, get the better of him.
Yeah,
Man, Nick
there's
came out of that super.
yeah. Those weren't the curves that shoot you airborne. I think it's the real bad ones are the ones on the start, the ones before the start finish straight. Those are the
Nick got super lucky. He didn't touch a single one of those with his tires. They all went straight underneath the car. So
Yep,
Ah,
straddled
okay.
them all. Yep,
Yeah.
straddled them
That's
all.
what did it.
it's funny. So that just goes to show you how you can get sort of tunnel vision when you're behind a guy. You tend to follow the guy in front wherever he's going, and Nick just happened to drive over those sausages, and everybody followed him out there.
Yeah, and we were talking about what you were saying with the drivers improving and how well they know. I mean, it's to see Driveman up in fourth place right now, leading these guys. He's looking really good, and it's great to see him up battling. It does look though that these Buckley and Miller are itching to get around him, and
Yeah. Taylor has more pace, so he's starting to. Oh, there he goes. There he goes around. In contact with Miller.
effing.
Oh man, that's unfortunate right there. But
We'll ride on board with Miller. We'll go back and get Driveman too, but just to see from Miller's point of view.
Buckley narrowly misses Taylor right there.
Oh, you know what it is? It looks like Driveman hits the brakes to avoid coming back onto the track. It looks like I think Miller was anticipating that he would keep rolling, and that ended up as what caused the collision there. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that just looks like a little bit too much rear bias on that Honda going into that corner.
And I think if we go back one more time too, I think what might have happened was the combination of the rear bias, and it looks like Nick shoots across because he's so far inside. He immediately goes to hit the brakes and turns. You could see the car kind of jolt. I think he was shooting across to get in his normal position for where he wants to brake, and it was just too much for the car.
Yeah, you could see the inside right rear lock up. You can actually, if you go back to that, you can see the skid mark on the track as he's trying to make that corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just locked up the rears. And,
he's been struggling for a few laps though. Taylor had more pace. He's sometimes when a guy's bearing down on you like that, it makes you drive worse because your car is already not set up quite right. Maybe you're not real happy with how it feels, and then you got somebody just bearing down on you in every braking zone, and it gets in your head. That's a hard thing to deal with. I know I hate it whenever I'm driving or I'm racing and somebody you see Buckley zooming past Taylor there.
I think Taylor gave it to him.
Yeah,
It looked like it. It looked like it. I don't know what that was all
Did
about.
Taylor lose traction?
I think Taylor knows Buckley's faster than him, and he's just doesn't want to hold him up. I think that's what this is.
Let's see again. So he comes around. Yo, there it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh no, he loses.
he's drifting.
Yeah.
He almost went all the way around.
I was gonna say I know Taylor's playing it safe, but I don't know if he's playing it safe enough
Quite
to
that
just
safe?
let. Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's the CS and the CSRL is counter steer. You could see the front tires braking right while the car is going left on that Ferrari. That's what CSRL is counter steer racing league. So Scott had a oh shit moment there for a second where he almost lost it.
So CSRL is not Canadian Sim Racing League.
No, it's
because
not.
I saw in the Discord that it was brought to our attention that it's only been Canadians that have won. So the championships
okay.
every year, yeah,
Okay.
that was highlighted in the Discord earlier this week. So if
Yeah,
Mota does manage, at this point in the championship, I think as long as Mota finishes the race, he will win the championship with how many points he's ahead of the other drivers. So that if Mota's able to, that would secure another trophy for up north.
Wow, I didn't realize Mota was from Canada.
Unless I'm wrong, but that's what I thought I saw.
You may be right. I'm not sure. But looking up at the scoreboard there, you can see Mota is now 4.6 seconds behind Alvarez. So Alvarez is kind of checking out from everybody right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
I just verified on SimGP. Mota has the Canadian flag next to his name.
Wow, what are the chances of that? Dominated by guys from Canada. That's good for those guys there. There's some pretty.
Apparently, the chances are pretty good. So.
They're pretty fast drivers. So, pretty fast drivers. I know we've seen some domination by Jon Snow and Mike Wojcik in the past, and you know it's funny during most of that time while those guys were dominating, Alex Mota was right there. You know, he was always in the top 5 while those guys were winning a lot of races and stuff. So he's worked a long time for it. So if he's able to hold on to it and win a championship, he's definitely put in the time for it, you know. Meanwhile, Buckley's looking pretty good. He's got good pace.
Well, he's definitely got the hours.
Yeah, it does look like Buckley is starting to pull away here from Taylor.
But you see the gap. You talked about it before the race, Mike. You talked about how fast the top 3 were. They're 32 seconds ahead. Third place is 32.9 seconds ahead of the rest of the field. So those 3 guys, even though they're not very close to each other, they have gapped the rest of the field pretty badly.
Yeah, kind of makes you wonder if Alex is just like, you know what? As long as I finish the race, things are going to turn out. So there's no point.
Exactly. He's at a place where he's got a solid gap on Macedo behind him. Is it really worth risking it all just to try to beat Alvarez? You know, we've seen that in professional racing in the real world. So why wouldn't it be the case in sim racing where a guy's got the championship sealed up and they just coast to victory? You know, not in the race, but victory overall.
Yeah, exactly, and it makes sense. I think I'd play the same way. And it does show Mota's last lap was about a second off of his best, so he ran 2:07, and he's already been in the 2:06s this race. So,
but that car just doesn't. That car just does not look right through that section he just went through. It doesn't look like as planted as Alvarez's car does. You know, Alvarez's car is going right through there really smoothly. I know ACC is not the best at showing you what the car is doing from the outside. There are definitely sims. There's sims that do that better. But if you have spent hundreds of hours watching ACC races from the outside, like I have, you do kind of learn what the car is doing just from the outside view, from this third person camera. And it looks like the Porsche's leaning pretty heavily on that outside rear tire through those sweeping turns. So that's an uncomfortable feeling when you're driving it.
Yeah, it's definitely looking like it's getting quite a few four-wheel slides going on through some of these places as well. So yeah, it's sort of the opposite of how we saw the Honda earlier this season in some of those races where it just looked just super stiff and just completely unforgiving, and like it just was not happy with what was happening to it. And so far this race, it seems like the tables have turned. That NSX looks like it's completely at home here, and that Porsche looks like it's struggling a little bit.
Yeah, it does. That Alvarez looks so stable and so in control of that car here.
Yeah,
Let's see if we can, maybe we can get a heli cam of him. He's gonna enter that S section here shortly. Maybe we can get a good view of his car through it.
Yeah, you see how careful he's being,
Yeah.
and he's still sliding around even though he's being excessively careful. He's just not able to push through there.
Yeah, and through practice, I can't remember if Mota was one of the guys who was losing it there. I know Taylor was having issues with the Ferrari through those S's.
Mm-hmm.
And Taylor just moved in front of Buckley, but it looks like that's because Buckley has entered the pits. So we're at the 26-minute mark, so pits are opened up about 6 minutes ago, and it looks like Buckley was the first driver to opt heading into the pits.
Yeah, it is crazy just watching some of these other cars. Like even the Audi, which I would say is probably one of my least favorite cars to drive, looks like it's a bit more planted going through there.
Yeah, from talking to Miller this week through practices, his biggest struggle was he said he was dealing with a lot of understeer from the Audi. So not so much having an oversteer problem or an issue with losing the rear, but saying that trying to get that nose into turns, he was struggling with. He looks like he's doing well with it now. I don't see him struggling, so maybe he got that figured out before the race. But I know that he was complaining about it all week because supposedly the Audi's one of the stronger cars here, and he was complaining, saying that he doesn't understand how people love it so much here.
Well, some of that front end contact he had might have added a little extra angle to some of those aero features on the front. Maybe he's got a bit more downforce now.
Yeah, true. Maybe that is it. That fixed his problems.
Yeah, that's all you got to do is just wreck it first. I mean, believe it or not, it's actually a legitimate tactic in some sports. You lose some body work, makes you faster.
Hey man, it works in NASCAR.
It works in F1 too. Lose the mirrors, no more drag. There you go.
Well, you see Scott, he's gotten himself up into fourth place. He doesn't have the pace of the top three, obviously, but depending on where Buckley comes out after everybody has pitted, he's going to be in a battle with Buckley to try to get fourth for this race. And I think he's going to be happy with fourth or fifth, but you want fourth. if you had your choice,
within your grasp. Yeah.
If it's within your grasp, you're going to want it,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like you said, it'll be interesting to see when Scott pits and exits to see where he comes out in relation to Buckley. I'd love to see them having some battles here at the second half of this race to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
It's always kind of difficult to know what's going to be more powerful at a track, the overcut or the undercut. I still haven't quite worked out that. I think probably the shorter laps favors the undercut.
Hmm.
Longer ones favors the overcut, but it's not something you see a lot of guys, or not that I've noticed, really
I
picking
think
opposite or same strategies as the people they're racing close with. Most guys just seem to have a lap in mind that they want to come in at, and then just sort of try to hit their
Yeah,
marks as best they can. And it's not really a strategy decision for most guys, unless of course you're David Macedo and
that's
wait until
that's what I was gonna say.
12.
But that's the same thing. He plans out from the beginning that he's gonna pit the last possible lap.
Yeah, 12 seconds left in the
Yeah,
pit window. I'm flying into the pits, but
yeah.
Yeah, there are guys though that need tires more than others. David Macedo can do what he does because as his tires wear, he doesn't historically really lose much on his lap times. I mean, he loses maybe a little bit, but it's not enough that getting tires is a desperate, oh, I need tires. He's
Mm-hmm.
fine. But, Mota, for those who have been with this league since back when we used to have no tire changes as an option, um, Mota was pretty verbal about the fact that he thought that was a disadvantage for him because the Porsche would fall off really badly in the second half of the race on those worn tires. But he had to make a choice. Do I drive on worn tires and lose a ton of pace, or do I burn up my first set of tires as aggressively as possible, pit, fall way behind because I took tires, and then try to make that time up because I'm faster on fresh tires? And that's what Moda did for the first 2 seasons he was with us. Was he would pit and take tires and fall back to like 8th place, and then he would come charging all the way back up to the top 4 every race on fresh tires. But it was hurting his ability to have a chance to win because the guys that were the fastest in the league didn't take tires at all.
Yeah, I mean
So
that's like you're talking almost like 20 some seconds disadvantage for not being able to just stop and go and actually have to get the tires changed. So
yeah, it's
that's a
it's a
lot to have
huge
to make up
difference.
for. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that was a big reason why it was I think it was a fun time when we used to do that. Like it was interesting, but in the end it was the right call just to make it a mandatory tire change because you know it definitely evens the playing field and makes it fair for everybody and
absolutely.
doesn't
And we've
force
seen
you to have to drive a different car.
it helped the guys who are harder on their tires have a chance to be more competitive. We saw huge gains by Mota. He started finishing second every race instead of fourth every race. So his placement went up. Guys like Jesse Albert, he became better because everybody else was taking tires also. So he was on point with everybody else. Um, I know we don't see Jay on the track anymore, but I think that would have helped Jay if we could ever get him back on the track. Because he's very hard on tires because he's a very aggressive driver. And so like you said, Mike, it was the right call. Like it was fun in the old days. We did a lot of things back then that we would never do now, but it was fun. It was an interesting way to start, and
Yeah.
it provided a layer of strategy. But after a couple of seasons of that same strategy, we realized, okay, if we leave it this way, certain people are just going to struggle. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. The people who started figuring out the formula, we started to figure out there's just too much of a gap for
Yeah.
those who drove the cars or had the driving style that they could just stay on that single set of tires.
Yeah.
well, and what helps is the fact that we do something that I don't know that a lot of leagues do, which is lock people to a car. So you have to drive the car that you pick at the beginning of the season for the entire season. So you want to pick a car that's good on tires, but might not necessarily be the fastest car out there. Well, then you sort of have to you got to stew in it all season. So it's it's definitely it's a strategy thing because not every car is great at every track. There are some that are decent at every track, but then
Yeah.
you can kind of see it when you get to those tracks and you're like, oh, okay, well the Porsche must be strong here because nobody knows where Alex is at this point.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we do things the way we do, because if we had everybody driving the same car for Monza because that car dominates at Monza, and then everybody switched cars for COTA, and then everybody switched cars for Zandvoort, like that would be terrible. Like it's just a terrible kind of racing. If you if you want to have a championship that like rewards people for having a certain car that they like or whatever, then you should make it where everybody's stuck with whatever they choose. Like, I think it's the best way to do things.
And I'll tell you, sometimes it feels like you're stuck with it. I mean,
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
The Lexus was one of those where it is just it's a love-hate relationship. I hate the car and it loves to make me hate it, but it was so fast, so fast.
Mhm.
Sounds so good too.
It
Yeah, yeah,
sounds fantastic, and you see other people have success in that car. That's the biggest thing in sim racing that gets people. They're in a public lobby or somewhere and they see somebody dominate with a car, and then they jump in the car, and it sounds good and it's exciting. It feels good in those first couple of races you do with it, and you go, "This is my car," and you start the championship with that car, and then 3 races later you're like, what in the hell have I done?
yeah.
Like, this was not the right car for me. I shouldn't have let that hype get in my brain and tell me I wanted this car, because now I hate it and I'm stuck with it for 5 more races.
Yeah, that's how I felt with the Audi. When I did the Audi, if I had the option to have changed mid-season, I would have done it. It's just, I I did it to do something different and to it was the new car that season. But yeah, that mid-engine, and it's just I like I know what I like now. It's the front engine rear-wheel drive cars. That's what I like to drive.
Yeah, I personally, I want to see you back in the Aston, Mike. I don't.
Hmm.
You're the most successful
Ooh,
Aston driver that we've ever seen in this league. The
Ooh.
only the only one who's in that same level is Marchician,
So
Andre.
so I know you weren't around this season, um, but Mike Bowen actually picked the Aston. However, unfortunately he was only able to make very few races this season. He really wasn't able to be very active this season. But I
Mm,
think if he would have had the full season, the little bit that we got to see of him in that Aston, he looks like he could have won the championship in it. So
yeah, and
wow.
David Hicks was in it this season as well, and he
yeah,
was doing
David
pretty
did
good.
well. Yeah, he did do well. He's another one that didn't get to make all of the races, but yeah, he was looking good in the Aston as well. So I think I'd have my competition cut out for me even if I went back to the Aston. But I've heavily considered it. Trust me. I think
Yeah.
it may be in the cards for a future season that I return to that car.
So what did Pedro drive this season? I missed that. Wasn't it something like
The
completely different?
Lambo.
The Lambo. I didn't miss that. I saw it.
Yeah.
I just couldn't remember. Yeah, that from the Bentley to the Lambo, what a change of scenery. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
almost
was.
everything completely opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was great to see him want to challenge himself and kind of move out of his comfort zone. So I respect him for that because he was definitely dangerous in that Bentley. And he was a formidable opponent out on the track, but it takes a lot to go. Okay, I'm going to switch cars. I know I'm not going to be as competitive. I'm not going to be as fast. I'm going to be taking a step backwards here. But, I don't know necessarily if Pedro did it to challenge himself or to out of boredom or what his reasons were. But it was admirable to see him do it. I like seeing guys, challenging themselves and trying different
Absolutely.
cars.
Well, the mark of a good sim is that every car feels like you're playing a different game. And
Yeah.
ACC has that in spades. When you change cars in ACC, you're no longer playing the game you were playing. Now you're playing something completely different. You might still be going around a track, but you're doing it in a completely different fashion. Your inputs are different. What you can get away with is different. Um,
So true.
it's I've kind of become a hardcore DCS player and uh wannabe pilot in DCS. And the terrible thing about DCS is you have to pay for every single aircraft individually, and it's very expensive. The great thing about DCS is when you buy a new aircraft, it is like you're playing it's like you bought a whole new game. So
Hmm.
you're flying this new aircraft, you have to relearn everything you already knew again. And so I went from when everybody else did back when the new Audi came out for ACC, I jumped in it and turned some laps in it, and I absolutely despised that car. I couldn't understand why everybody was driving it. I hated it. I was coming from the Porsche. The Porsche is the car I mainly drive in ACC,
Yeah.
and I hated the Audi. It felt like the front end would not turn in no matter what I did. But other guys loved it, and some guys still like Stephon Buckley and Evan Miller. Those guys drive that car every season. And hey, more power to them. It's just not for me. So you kind of have to, like for Pedro, he was such a new driver when he started with that Bentley. Granted, it might have been the perfect storm. He might have found the perfect car for him with his first ever car, but you don't really know that until you explore and go try other things. So I'm glad he tried the Lambo. I hope he tries something else next season, something else completely.
Yeah, I have
But
a feeling he probably will. I don't get the impression he really liked the Lambo, so
yeah,
I would not be shocked to see Pedro in a different car next season.
Yeah, it's definitely an acquired taste.
yeah,
Yeah, I know
yeah.
David Macedo. His big thing that he switches cars almost every season, and from talking to him, he kind of looks at it as a way to improve as a driver because he feels like he can learn a little something different with every car and pick up these little pieces and just make him a better all-around driver.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, ACC doesn't do one thing that I love that other sims do, which is they give you different racing disciplines. If you learn how to drive an open wheel car or a kart that has no aero, no downforce, um, that's all suspension and weight balance is how you handle in the car, or you learn how to drive these different kinds of cars that are completely different. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing similar to a GT3 car. Then you come back to a GT3 car and it feels easy because you've learned how to drive an Indy car around something like Hockenheim, which is a horribly hard track in an Indy car. And then you
Sounds
come
hard
back
to even say.
yeah, you come back to ACC and you get in a planted heavy GT3 car that's very forgiving compared to an open wheel car, and you're going to be a better driver because you learned some things with those slippery open wheel cars or cars with no downforce or whatever you were driving, and you bring that back to this arena, and suddenly the car is much more reliable, it's much heavier, it's much more stable, and then you can find speed you couldn't find before. So I've always been I've even tried to push it on some of these guys and they push back pretty hard, but I felt like, to improve some of the drivers, we needed to step out of that comfort zone of the GT racing. We needed to do some other forms of racing. But
The
that's just
day
my
ACC puts it in their game.
I know
Well,
these
I mean,
I know
It'll
know.
never happen. But
No, it
No,
won't.
it's never
I
going to
think
happen.
the best thing we can do now is GT4s, which I think are amazing, and sort of some of the like the M2s and some of the challenge, like the 488 challenge is it's a wickedly fast car with horrible brakes, skinny tires, very little downforce. It's basically like driving a rocket ship on blocks of ice. It's quite something.
Well, yeah, and I want to make sure we touch on that before the end of the broadcast to talk about some of the off-season plans we have that involve exactly what you were talking about. So we'll advertise that at the end of the race. Um, but yeah, I agree. There's a lot of fun content in the game outside of the GT3 cars, and while that remains the focus and will remain the focus of the league, it's nice to mix it up and have some fun with some of the other cars now and then too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it looks like Buckley got back in front of Taylor. I'm guessing that's probably due to pits.
Yeah, it looks like that's the case, but I'm watching here. Taylor has been hovering right around a second behind him. Looks like he kind of got it slightly under that now. So we'll have to see. We're about 15 minutes left in the race, so he has time to close that gap if he does have a little bit better pace. But we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, you see Alvarez, he's got about a 7-second lead on Mota, and Mota's got
Mm-hmm.
got a 15, almost 16-second lead on Macedo. So there's really nothing going on in the front. When I would do the broadcast for this league, I would spend a lot of time around the middle of the pack and showing battles that were going on middle of the pack and back of the pack. And I would feel like maybe some of the guys who were leading the race were thinking like, "Hey man, I'm winning, show me." But when you're winning by 8 seconds or 7 seconds, there's nothing to show. It's just a car
Yeah,
going around the track.
it's not a
Yeah.
race. It's just hot lap. So
Yeah. We've all hot lapped plenty enough in our time to know what that's like. So if there's action on the track, that's definitely where we want to. We always check in with the front, check in, see how it's going, and then go back to where the action is.
Yep, absolutely. I'll tell you what we'll do, Jay. If as Alvarez is getting ready to get back to the start-finish straight, you want to we'll ride on board with Alvarez and let you do a walkthrough.
oh sure. I mean, I'm not the fastest guy around here, but I generally
It's
know how to
okay.
get around.
We get to ride on board with the fastest guy around here, so.
Okay, I'll bullshit my way through it. Yeah, this track it's got a little bit of everything, which is kind of cool. So as you come out of this corner, it's fairly tight. It's a lot tighter than you think it is on the straight. You want to avoid those sausages. All right, so now you're coming up the straight toward T1, and this is an uphill braking zone, so you can brake super late here. So right about those boards, you're going to brake kind of in toward the apex. Avoid the sausages on the outside if all possible. All the way to the left-hand side, all the way into the right-hand side, and you want to sort of kind of keep toward the middle of the track, so you can make these turns here. Now each one of these is a decreasing radius, so you kind of gotta keep slowing down, and this one's kind of deceptive. It gets tighter at the end. Touch the apex there. Now here you kind of want to ride the curb all the way around to sort of open up this exit onto this little straight here. You can cut that kink, but don't cut too much. Any of these places on the track that are bright red, if you cut too much, you will get track limits. So you want to treat this like it's not so much an apex, but almost like a wider corner there. You don't want to drive straight toward it. You want to sort of a 3-point turn through there. Come down here. So this braking zone is downhill, so you kind of have to brake a little bit earlier than you think you should have to. Touch the apex there, avoid the sausages. And this point, this is rough. So this is like a double apex right, really slow, into a really slow double apex left. You want to sort of avoid, if you can, you want to avoid that first apex a little bit wider so you can get a better exit out onto this through here. Now this is like a triple apex right-hander. You just kind of gotta feather the throttle so you don't understeer wide. The fairly fast left-hander, pretty straightforward, and then back onto the pit straight.
Excellent job, Jay. I admire the fact that you can just rattle that off the way you do. You know your tracks. Very insightful.
Yeah, man, that was always my favorite thing to do whenever I was doing the broadcast, was to do the ride along with somebody. I didn't always ride with the leader, but I tried to find somebody who was having a really good race and really consistent. And it only bit me, I think, one time in 4 seasons. One time I tried to do a ride along with somebody, and they spun out. And
It's
every
probably
other
me.
time, I don't remember who it was. I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus. I don't remember who it was, but it did happen to me once where I took that gamble and it bit me. But every other time, those guys, it was always somebody like a Mike Doherty or a Jon Snow or a David Macedo. Those guys aren't going to let you down very often. You know what I mean? They once Pedro had proven himself. I think I did ride-alongs with Pedro a few times. I always tried to choose somebody who's pretty consistent as a driver, so the risk was minimal. But
I
yeah,
think I remember exactly what it was, Nate. I think it was the night race at Hungaroring. I think you were riding along with me, and I just ate shit right into a wall.
that might be right, Jay. That might
Yeah,
be the
I
right
think I
call.
remember that. I think I
You,
remember that.
you had a really bad night that night. That was probably one of the harder races you ever had in this league, because you were really fast that weekend, but just that night it just wasn't working for you. Just wouldn't
That
wouldn't
was
work.
our first race. So after qualifying and practice that week, the 1.8 patch dropped. So that was our first race on 1.8.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And the Ferrari just went away. Yeah, that's right. I forgot
Oh
about
God,
that.
it was horrible. It was the worst thing I've ever driven.
Yep. And that's something we deal with in sim racing that just does not happen in real racing. If ACC drops some big patch and they buff and nerf a bunch of different cars, suddenly cars that were struggling are fast, and cars that were fast are struggling. And yeah, that season was really odd, because the update didn't just buff or nerf cars, it actually changed the tire handling
Yeah,
model so
every car
much.
was different at that
And
point.
Yeah,
Every car felt different.
the suspension physics of every car as well. So it's like,
yeah,
I mean, the only analog would be like if all of a sudden reality came out with a new physics patch.
yeah. And it wasn't even like it happened on Sunday where we had the whole week. I think it was a Wednesday or a Thursday. So we
Yeah,
had
it happened
like
right before the race.
2 days to prepare. And I remember being in the Discord like, guys, get in as much practice as you can, because everything is different. Everybody's freaking out.
Yeah.
Do as much racing as you can between now and Saturday night.
I remember the first curb I touched with the new physics engine. It's like, oh my god, you can really feel the curbs now, and they
Oh
suck you off
God.
the track on some of the curbs.
Speaking of that, Buckley just about.
Yeah.
I think Buckley had a code brown there going
Yeah.
through that corner.
Yeah, and at this point, I don't know if something happened to Scott or if we, yeah, like something, because he's showing like 15 seconds back from Buckley, so
Yeah,
that's
something we
might
missed
have happened when
something.
we were doing the ride along with Alvarez. Something might have happened to Taylor,
Yeah. I
but
mean,
he's still
Scott,
safely in fifth. He's still
yeah,
25, almost seconds ahead of
exactly.
Miller.
Exactly. He was in a good position where even if something did happen, he was going to be okay. He's still got well, it shows 1 lap, so it's more than a lap that he's ahead of Miller, so he's comfortably in fifth.
I don't see any damage on his cars. So
That's exactly what I was looking for. I tried to go to the
yeah.
TV1 camera to see if we could see anything.
Yeah, I figured you were checking. But yeah, it's I mean the car looks fine, so if anything it was, maybe a little hitting a curb and getting a little loosey goosey.
Yeah, I know. Like I said before, from talking to him in practice and stuff, those S's were catching him quite a bit, where the back would step out on him in the Ferrari. But maybe that's what happened. He kind of spun and lost some time there.
Well, it's interesting that the Honda, because the Honda is is it considered a rear engine or mid
I think
engine?
it's
I
mid.
believe it's mid, yeah.
Mid
Yeah,
engine.
I think Porsche is the
So,
only rear.
so Porsche being the rear engine, it makes sense that those S's are difficult in that car because you have that extra weight in the tail end of the car. But it seems like all the cars. Like I wish we had a something front engine in this race to compare through those S's. Like an Aston
Oh, interesting. You're right. We don't
or
have
a
a single
or a
front
Bentley.
engine car. I didn't even
Yeah,
notice that.
yeah, it would be interesting to have something to compare it to because I wonder how much better, like say the Bentley would handle those S's with the front end planted better.
Well, I can tell you from driving the Merc through those S's. Ugh. That's just the Merc, though. The Merc's just.
Yeah, I was
I
Yeah,
that.
can't stand it.
It
well, some
doesn't
of
count.
it's
It doesn't count.
yeah. I was gonna say in some of the front engine cars, you don't get the best like change of direction, like tossing it left, right, left kind of thing. They're not as agile. Like if it's a single turn, like the Aston and stuff like that, especially if you're carrying speed, does really well. But when it comes to um, shifting it back and forth, it's not always their strong point.
I know coming from the Porsche, when I tried the Mercedes, it felt like it was on water instead of concrete. Like it just
Yeah.
felt like it was washing all over the place. And I'm so used to the
Yeah.
Porsche. The Porsche is very precise. Where you tell it to go, it goes. And the Mercedes just felt so heavy and sluggish. And I hated everything about it. I couldn't make that car work. Now that the Aston Martin, I had a great experience with the Aston Martin, but the problem with it was I couldn't get the power out of it that somehow Mike Doherty and apparently Mike Bowen and some other guys have figured out how to do. I always struggled on corner exit in the Aston because
Oh, it's
you have to
terrible.
manage the power on that car.
Well, it has gotten a buff, so they did sort of address the absolute dog shit acceleration in it. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
so
Was
it's a
that this
bit,
season?
yeah, it's a
Oh.
bit more it's a bit more spry than it used to be. But yeah, so it's the whole age old thing of what do you prefer, an understeery car that you steer with a throttle, or an oversteery or a pointy car that just does what you want it to do. And personally,
Mhm.
I can't stand understeer.
As we
Yeah.
you had mentioned the track limits on your walkthrough, Jay, and I was gonna say that I didn't want to interrupt your walkthrough. I was gonna say it's something a miracle no one's gotten a drive through yet here, because COTA notorious for it. But looks like our first victim's gonna be Nick Driveman here, who does show getting a drive through penalty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Luckily for Nick, it's not going to cost him a position tonight. But
No.
yeah, that's a good lesson to learn because I'm sure Coda.
Oh,
I'm
and
Oh,
sure.
I think he had something to say about his drive through.
so,
So Coda, I'm sure will be a track that we will run, from time to time because it's a very popular track and it is a good test. Like when we first started and I was making the schedule for the races, my whole mission was to make it as hard on you guys as possible. And I didn't start that way. The first season, that wasn't the plan. The first season was what would be fun, what tracks are popular, so on and so on. But then as I started to see how good you guys were, how good everybody in the league was, even the guys in the back of the pack were exceptional compared to your average sim racer. And so I was like, So we're just going to throw the kitchen sink at these guys and see what they can do. Let's go to Alton Park. Let's go to, let's do all these tough tracks that nobody runs, and we'll do them regularly. I know a lot of people hated Kyalami when we first started.
I love
Uh,
Kyalami.
a lot of people hate Brands Hatch. Some of them, I can't remember how many people told me I've never raced Brands Hatch until I joined this league. And we've run it several times. And the same thing with Alton Park. Like, oh, I hate Alton Park. I can't stand this track. But at a point comes to the same guys are going to finish in the same positions if we race all the similar tracks. So you have to have that variety of tracks to give those guys who may not be that great at Spa, but hey, they might be able to survive Alton Park. They might be able to finish higher at Alton Park just because they'll survive, whereas some of the faster guys won't. And so I think it's made for great racing, and I hope it is made for some better drivers, guys who come away from this league and when they do go server crashing or whatever they do in their sim racing time, they're better for it.
Yeah, I think it's good to race a variety of tracks because just like switching cars, and Alvarez takes the checkered flag there. Great job, Alvarez. But just like switching cars, you can learn a little bit. The other thing is you switch tracks and you can pick up little pieces on. Maybe you figure out how to take a certain turn at Alton Park, and then you figure out that there's a way to transfer how you took that turn at another track where maybe you start to apply things, whether it's like trail braking or late apexing or setting up one turn for the, sacrificing speed in one turn to make up for the next turn when it's a section. You just start to pick up little things from track to track, and then you can apply them to others. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So, one thing we're going to have to get done on the Discord server, hopefully most of the people here watching are on the Discord server, but we have a ranking system on our server. So we're going to have to put Mota as an alien, which is the highest racing centric rank. Now there's people who are ranked higher than alien, but that's not based on racing, it's based on other things. But the highest racing rank that you can achieve is alien, and to get that you have to win a championship at CSRL, and Mota has just completed that. So he is now champion of the league, our first new champion in 4 seasons.
yeah,
Because
great
every
to see a new
yeah
face.
yeah so he's champion. He's going to be ranked as an alien, and then Alvarez, with his first win with us, is going to be ranked up to a pro driver. So that's something for those guys. I know it doesn't mean much to most of the people watching, but to the guys in the server, I think it means a little something, and they enjoy that. So
Yeah, and the great thing with Moto, this was, earlier in the season we were talking, he got his first win because he had managed to go. We went all 4 seasons leading up to 5. Mota had never had a won a race in one of the championships. So this is the first season. Not only he won multiple races this season, he has now since gone through and also won the championship. So congrats to Mota. That's awesome.
yeah, absolutely. And all these guys that were here tonight have been with us. I don't think. Okay, there is one guy, Friedland. I don't know Friedland because I
Yeah,
haven't been
Freeland
around that
joined
much.
us. Yeah, he joined us just a couple of races ago, so he's one of the
Yeah, so he's
new
new, but
drivers. Yeah.
everybody else on the board there have all been with us at least 2 or 3 seasons, and that shows that we have a good, strong court. Now there's several guys who aren't in this race who have been with us for quite a while, and we hope they'll be back next season.
Yeah,
But
hopefully we see a lot of the guys back and we have a good turnout for season 6. Season 5, we dropped to a pretty low number of drivers compared to what we normally have. So hopefully we can get a lot of guys back for season 6 and have a really fun-filled season 6. The So for driver of the day, something we started doing now, Nate, is at the end of the race, Jay and I choose our driver of the day or someone that we want to highlight. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone who who won, just someone that you think had a really good race or had some really good moments out on the track. So you, as our guest of honor tonight, I will let you start with the first pick. The grid is yours to choose from.
Well, the easy answer would be Alex Mota because it secured a championship, but I won't go that route. Um, Great job by Mota. We've all known him for a long time, so good to see him have that success. But I want to say for Alvarez, he he really, I don't know how much of a setup guy he is. Some guys are more setup guys and some guys are more just drivers and they struggle with setups. But he had that Honda dialed in for this track. I mean, he's really fast anyway. And so when his car's set up that well, he's going to be extremely hard to beat. And this was his first win in this league. And it's been a long time coming. He's qualified first. Alvarez has on well, not many, but several occasions, and never been able to pull out that win. So maybe I'm taking the easy guy off the board, but I think it's Alvarez just for the way he put it all together and really was pretty dominant in this race.
Yeah, Alvarez deserves the pick for that. I definitely champion that pick. So great choice, Jay. Your driver of the day for today.
I mean, it's largely going to be the same. I mean, I'm quite impressed with the drive we saw from Alvarez today. So I think that's a second from me as well.
Well, that works. I don't have to put up a second graphic now. I can just merge. So I'll go ahead for mine. I'm gonna pick Stefan Buckley this race. I thought the fourth place finish from Stefan was great. He had some good battles, recovered from that turn one incident, and came back nicely from that. So great job to Stefan Buckley, who managed to pretty much go from almost last to first after that.
Yeah, he had a great race too. There's been in the history of this league some really great seasons by some guys, and I'm not just talking about the people who've won championships, but some of these guys fought really hard to get 10th, but in a 25 car field, 10th was a hell of an achievement because the top 10 were all extremely fast. So,
Yeah.
these guys, it's a long season. It's a 2-month long season. It doesn't seem that long, but when it's a sim racing season, it is long because life tends to get in the way. It's really hard to make all 8 races and be competitive. So, good job by all these guys just for showing up and putting in the time.
It does, and I'll go ahead and just post on the screen. You guys, you won't be able to see it in the broadcast here, Nate, but for the viewers watching, the finishing position for the season. So our top 3, we have Mota finishing the championship first, David Macedo finishing second, Eric Alvarez third, and as you can see down the board, I'll just display for everybody else. But another great finish for the season, just to highlight Scott Taylor, who managed to finish 5th place. Evan Miller right behind him in 6th. Those two guys had a great season this year, or this season. So congrats to them, and congrats to everyone else, and thank you for everyone who participated with us and contributed in making a great season. And like I said, we look forward to hopefully having everyone back and more for season 6. We have the start date for season 6. I don't know if we have it set, but it's going to be January. We're going to take a break for the holiday, kind of have an extended off season to give everyone a chance to, do their holiday things, whether you're traveling or just spending time at home with the family. However, and I'll let Jay talk about this, we do have a kind of mini event that we're running in the off season that's open to everyone who would like to keep racing during the off season. So Jay, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's really David Macedo's brainchild. he came up with the idea of doing a little mini series with a qualifying and a sprint and then a reverse grid feature race. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be running 2 separate events because SimGP doesn't allow us to do it any other way, really. We're going to be running the practice qualification sprint race as their own event, and then using the results from the sprint race, we're going to be running a second server about 5 to 10 minutes after that with the finishing order reversed. So the guys that finish first are going to be at the back of the field, and then that's going to be the feature race. So I think there's going to be about 4 of those, 1 a week in the off season until the start of season 6. We do have 2 test events coming up on the 23rd, just to try everything out. So if you're interested and you're a member of the Discord, and if you're not, there should be a link to join it. Feel free to jump in and help us test that out before it goes live, and we hope to see you for the little mini series, GT4 series that we're running.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Mix it up with some GT4 cars, and it's a great chance if you haven't raced with the league and you want to kind of just get on the track with the guys. No matter your skill level, whether you're someone that's been racing for a long time or someone new to sim racing, we really welcome all drivers. We have, if you're not at the point where you feel ready to race in the championship, we do have like practice events and non-points based events during the week that you're welcome to join, even if you're not racing in the championship, just to get on the track with the guys and do laps, get more familiar with the game. And again, we've got drivers of all skill levels, so don't let whether you think you're too fast or too slow or anywhere in between, don't let you stop from racing with us. And our race times for the championship season are 9:30 East, 9:30, right? I'm having a brain fart. 9:30 Eastern.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. 9:30.
Yeah. That's I don't know why I started hesitating. Now for the GT4 Championship, I think those are going to be this mini series. That's going to be Saturday nights as well. However, we're doing that at 8 p.m. Eastern. Is that right, Jay?
I do believe so, and if it's not, we can go ahead and just get that posted.
We'll have the details posted, but yeah, I believe that's going to be 8. So,
I didn't know there would be homework involved, or I would not have come.
It's surprise host pop quiz. I don't even give you homework where you anticipate it. It's just thrown at you, like when I ask you to do a track guide walkthrough or whatever.
And also, I think we forgot to mention it at the top of the broadcast here, but stick around after the race here. We do actually have an interview with Alex Mota that will be sort of at the end of this whole thing here. So.
Oh yes, we will. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, stay tuned. We're gonna have Alex on.
Well, thanks for joining us, Alex. Congratulations on your championship win, sir.
Yep, thank you. It was a well-fought season. A lot of luck, I think, this season.
Well, I don't know about luck. I mean, there's always a pinch of luck in anyone's season that does well, but I think a lot of the credit goes to you.
Yeah, well, you got to be good to be lucky. So there you go.
Right.
Yeah, I think cards just kind of fell in my favor this year. Everything seemed to line up pretty good.
So it looked like, to the untrained eye, that you might have been fighting a bit of a setup issue during the Kyalami race. Can you walk us through kind of how the car felt there? It looked like it was a bit hard to handle.
Kyalami was it was good. I did have it a little bit, if you want to call it turny. It was very twitchy, but for overall it did feel good. I'm I guess using the new CDA setups, and they are very they turn in a lot. All these new
Yeah.
setups, they turn in a lot now.
Hmm.
And of course, I'm used to usually on a push, and now you're trying to hold it back a little bit more now. So, but
Now,
overall,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, overall it was good. I just had one crazy spin. Actually, it was right before the pit. After the long sweeping right-hander, the first slow left after that, I got onto the dirt and then spun it. And then, of course, trying to get back on the track, you're spinning your wheels. So they got up to like almost 30 degrees.
Oh
And then by
no.
the time I hit the S's, it was just uncontrollable. So I was babying the thing all the way down to the pits. And that's when Masita was kind of catching up there.
Uh-huh.
We were
But
wondering about that.
yeah,
I
so
think we missed the spin in the
just
broadcast.
that was just before the pit. So I got rid of the tires right away. I was planning on holding off another. I think that was only about halfway through. I've been taking Masita's lessons and trying to hold off to the end, keep fresher tires with a lighter load, and really pushing hard at the last stint.
Yeah, he's kind of famous for that.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I don't take it that long, but maybe one or two laps before the end. I'm not going to push it
Well,
till
I,
5 seconds left and do it.
I've got to ask too. 'Cause I think you've been driving the Porsche since day one racing with CSRL. What is it about the Porsche? What makes Mota drawn to the Porsche?
I don't even know. I don't know. I mean, one, I've always liked them. Um, as a personal car, just a regular 911. That's kind of been a fan favorite of it. It's kind of and I don't want to call it an exotic, but out of the supercar exotics, it's the less in your face car, but it's the one that'll kill you the most. And I'm kind of drawn to that over the years. And just in racing, I don't know. I started out in the Mercedes. It's just kind of, it was there. It was not overly exciting. But this one kind of made me, you know, take another learn it a little bit different and try different things on it. So I was kind of drawn to it that way. Yeah.
Well, your mastery of it has shown itself over these seasons. You keep getting more and more potent with it.
Yeah, yeah. Like I say, these new setups, like it's been helping on the turning in, and even on the last, well, I don't say the last race. The last race was kind of I was fighting tires in that race.
Yeah,
But
that was going to be my next question, actually.
yeah, but like Zandvoort, that thing was just hooking up all over the place. Like I say, other than that one corner, which I was talking to Mike on there, the downhill right-hander. Other than that one, I probably could have driven that track almost blind. It was just the car was just hooking up everywhere. It was really good that time.
Well, if you could, um, so we did notice that through some of the through the S's at COTA and toward the back of the track with some of the dual and triple apex corners that it seemed like the Porsche was struggling a little bit. Now you did mention tire pressures. Was that sort of the main bit of
Maybe.
it?
Yeah, I was low. I don't know what happened between qualifying and the race, but I was down probably in the low 27. So I was they never seemed to get up to temperature. Even when I was fighting at the beginning there, um, I with Eric, I just couldn't. They weren't even keeping up. I think the hottest I ever got it was 27.4, and that was when I was pushing hard. Even after the pit stop, I increased the pressure, and they still never got up. Of course, it got cooler, so I kind of negated the drop, but it still never went up to full temp. But yeah, it was weird. In when I was practicing on my own, and of course, there's a difference between your own, not your own server, but just playing single player and going on the servers. They don't seem to handle the same. I don't know what it is, but I mean, not to, pump my tires, but I was down in the 120 in the 205s. I was getting a 205 with the same setup, nothing different other than temperature range. I think I got down to a 20. a 2:05.5, something like that. Stat. Tell you in a second. What COTA? Yeah, 2:05, 2:05.7. But I was within probably about half a second of that all the time, and I just couldn't do it. Even in the qualifying, I think I barely made. I think we're high
Yeah,
20
two
206s.
206s. Yeah, I forget the exact. I know.
Yeah,
Both you, Macedo, and Alvarez all 206s in quali.
yeah, yeah. And I just couldn't sustain it anymore. I don't know. Kind of weird. But that track it's out to bite you. Just with the track limits, and you're, of course, when you're practicing on your own, you don't care about track limits, right? You're just pushing as hard as you can, and you make the lap, you make it. You don't, you just keep going. That one, I had 3 track limits just after my pit stop. So the last
Nice.
22 minutes or so, I was on 3.
Well, that makes sense. We were assuming you might be playing it safe a little bit, knowing that you pretty much had the championship in the bag. But there's another side to it too. You were playing it safe, trying to avoid that last track limit.
Trying, yeah. So, and that was the whole thing too. It would have been probably a little bit more exciting if there was a little bit more, if there was more cars on the track for one.
Mm-hmm.
Where if something did happen and I didn't finish, it would have been a bigger chance of Macedo leapfrogging me. If something happened like that. But with even only 8, I mean, he could have still beat me. If I finished last and he finished first or second, I think there was still points wise. He would have jumped me over. So yeah, I was pushing at the beginning. Then I let Eric go by after probably about 5 or 6 laps. I think we were kind of battling it out. I was holding him up, but he was just catching me every single time in that back
That
straightaway, no
straight.
problem at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We watched
So
it several times where I don't think it made it into the broadcast every time he
yeah,
was catching you, but when I was watching it earlier, I had seen a few cases where on that back straight he was constantly reeling you in, but just wasn't getting in position to make a move
yeah.
until he finally got that one opportunity.
Well, I would cut in on the
I
inside. I would
saw.
block the inside
Yeah.
lane, and
Yep.
then when he was really close to me at the beginning of the straightaway, I said, you know what? It's not even worth me dying or wrecking his race trying to, block him. So I said, you know what? Go for it. Pass me. I'll take second gladly, and just keep running. If you screw up somewhere else down the line, I'll come and get you. But if not, have at her.
So when it comes to sim racing, how long you been sim racing now?
Or well, in ACC, um, steadily, probably a year and a half.
Nice. Did you do any sim racing in the other games before ACC?
Yeah, like Gran Turismo, but yeah, it is what that is. It was pretty decent, but I probably haven't touched it in really probably about 7, 8 months. Probably not. Probably even before that.
Did you do
Maybe it's
the
last.
the wheel and everything with that,
Yo,
or
yeah,
did
yeah.
you?
I've always
Yeah,
had a
you always
wheel,
had the
but
wheel.
up until this year, it's been the DD Pro. Before that was just a Logitech G29. So that had its own little gremlins in it, but I found that and me changing to triples has actually triples this year, probably just in the summer. So I think when I missed that middle season was kind of in my transition mode. Um, and then the triples, I think I've helped out quite a bit.
Well, I mean, you were fast before, so that's
Yeah, now
that's
now it's
that's that's amazing.
yeah now I think you've managed to get even faster, and then the real dangerous part is just that your level of consistency it's really improved as well. So it's that's always the danger when you
Yeah.
get someone with that
Well,
combination.
yeah, that was my issue before. I always knew I was relatively quick, but I was good for one or two freaking crashes or spin outs a
Now I
race
don't blame you
guaranteed.
for that. I blame the Porsche for that.
Well, that's the
It's
thing. I mean, I'm running like a double-edged sword if you want to call it there. There's
yeah,
there's always trying to push it just to keep going hard. But then there's always if you just do a little bit wrong on this car, there's no forgiveness.
none.
So, but
Well, I mean, it's more like a triple-edged sword, but all 3 blades are pointing right at you.
for that, yeah,
Well,
that's it.
I mean, entertaining race be damned. I mean, no one here is going to begrudge you for just playing her safe and bringing it home and taking the championship win. And I just want to thank you once again for being here and doing this interview with us. And who knows, we may be talking to you a lot more in the future if you keep up this sort of
Yeah,
this sort of
well,
pace.
Yeah.
I'm glad to join you guys. It was been a pleasure listening to you guys all year. Your friendly little commentating has been something to look forward to every week. And
Well, thank you very
yeah,
much.
no, I was mentioning with Jon Snow there, we got to keep this championship above the border from you American guys.
That's what we brought up on the broadcast this week, that it was noticed. So
Yeah,
yeah, that might add some extra incentive for some guys next season after hearing that.
yeah. Well,
Uh,
you guys outnumber us too. Like, I think there's only 2 or 3 Canadians running in there.
yeah,
So,
y'all are fast. All the
but
ones are
but
fast.
yeah, we got to
Uh, well,
all the practice on the highway.
congratulations again, and yeah, just awesome accomplishment this season, and awesome job this season. And it's always a pleasure having you out in the track too. You're a great guy, great driver. So always happy to see guys like you that win the championship. So congrats.
Yeah, all right. Thank you guys, and yeah, hope we'll see you again next season. We'll try to defend. I don't know if that'll be as easier said than done. That's for sure. Like I said, there's a lot of fast guys here. There's
Yeah,
a lot of fast guys, and like I say, if everybody showed up, I don't know how this would have turned out, but you know, their
yeah,
loss is my game.
that's
So
piece of it. And I think you missed a race anyway too. So I mean, it
I did.
happens.
I
Yeah,
missed Hungaroring. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and a couple other ones. I barely just made it in time. Like I say, I knew there was going to be like 3 races that were going to be touchy, and one was Kailami, which was one I was hoping for because I think the last every season we've had it, I've had something terrible happen at Kailami, which is one of my better tracks for me. So finally get that one out of the bag.
that's right. Well, thanks again. Congrats again, and look forward to seeing you in action next season.
All right, guys,
Defending that crown. All
that's
right.
it for
All
me.
right.
Bye.
All right,
Bye.
thanks. See ya.